Okay. So, good morning. I hope everybody's rested from the weekend. I know I'm a little tired and so I played too much cornhole in my backyard. So, and it was the first time we've played with regulation size cornhole bags. Like we had the small travel set before. So like, that's no big deal. Like they're just itty bitty cornhole bags, but the big ones, yeah. So my arm's a little sore, but hopefully everybody had a chance to have a good relaxing weekend and you're feeling pretty good today. So Sierra and I are going to be talking about tutoring, which I know many of you could probably do this presentation. Randall, I think you have done this presentation. But I think there are things that we need to think about in relation to how we're going to handle tutoring this summer in the virtual environment, and what we can do to make sure that we're not losing that personal touch that really is what sets our tutoring services apart from everything else. Tutoring is very much, you have to read body language, you have to know a little bit of what that person across from you is thinking. So we'll talk a little bit about how things will progress. And so we're going to pull up the PowerPoint.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Can everyone see well, a white screen right now?
Yes.
And now Summer Tutor Training. Okay, good.
Oh God. So again, just real quick, our agenda is to talk, we'll go over some of the same information some of you already know, but again, we're going to come at it from the perspective of how do we provide the same service, but provide it through Zoom or over the phone, since we don't have in-person tutoring this summer. So then we'll go into the goals, remain the same. We're always focused on developing the independence in learning. So we want, you can go down one, Sierra. You want to make sure that the strategies that you are using aren't giving your tutees the answers, but what instead you are doing is you're empowering them to continue the learning when you are not there to help them along. So you want to, as much as possible, make sure that whatever your tutoring session form is, that you're making it an active interactive session. You want to make sure that you are, again, making sure that the tutees understand the concepts, but they also know how to apply the concepts. They know where to get answers when you are not there. And this is brand new for a lot of them. I know when I was in high school, before I came to Geneseo, I hadn't studied ever. I had no idea how to study. So part of what you are doing is teaching students how to learn and how to use the tools that they need to be effectively study. So we'll go down to, so Sierra.
Yeah, so This is really just talking about how to communicate with your tutor so that you're, you know, kind of getting at what they need. So this is tutoring in a cooperative process, or is a cooperative process and a mutual relationship. You have to be able to listen and understand your tutor, but also, how did this go back?
Oh,
Thank you.
there you
Okay.
go.
But also assess like the relationship and how you know you're communicating with your tutor. So make sure you're having progress notes so that you can like keep track of how your tutor's doing. I'm just gonna say the student. Tutor sounds weird. um but yeah, you just gotta be friendly but also be firm, because sometimes what ends up happening is that if you're too friendly, um students don't they don't take you seriously because you're also a student, you know, like, and they know that. So you want to come in with a firm approach and then get more friendly as you go on. So you start with a firm approach, you know, explain like, you know, I'm here to help, and I'm here to serve you as like almost like an academic counselor. Um, and then as you get more comfortable in the relationship, you can make jokes and stuff like that and make it more of an interactive process. um so yeah, I don't know if you want to say anything else, Miss Stevens.
Just make sure taking attendance, making sure that you can report back on anyone who might not be attending tutoring sessions, so that we can follow up with them as we need to. And the progress notes, whatever system we develop for those progress notes, that's fine. You may want to have notes of your own to refer back to that maybe only you understand. I very typically will have notes that I put in sessions kind of in the professional format, but then I very regularly have notes on my own to remember things that would only make sense to me. So just make sure that you have a way and that you're doing a good job of keeping track of the tutoring sessions.
And just to add one more quick thing, on the website in your tutor resources tab, there's going to be a tutor attendance tracking sheet. This is basically so that you can track how students are doing during your tutoring sessions and how many times they come. At the end of the year, we usually like give someone like awards, as everybody knows, because everyone's AOP. That helps with, you know, figuring out who has been doing their part in trying to get better at whatever it is that they need, like in terms of their subjects. But yeah, so that will be available for each class for everyone to use.
So the importance of the first impression, you know, Sierra is really good at this, but making sure that you set the tone for the remainder of your tutoring sessions. And this is something Sierra and I were talking about a little bit, again, because tutoring, there's so many cues that you have in tutoring sessions that are not spoken. And so we want to make sure that the tutoring, and we'll hit on this a couple times, but that the tutoring sessions, that we set the tone of come as you are. So, you know, for example, you know, in my household, if my girls were here, you'd probably see them. You might see their little heads poking up over the screen, or I might have a cat jump onto my table here. We want it to be a space where students understand that it's okay to have the camera on, because that's an important tool for you as the tutor so that you can understand what nonverbal cues they may be giving to you. But it goes both ways also. As the tutor, you need to understand that the nonverbal cues that you are giving through that camera can mean something to the students as well. Sarah, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so basically everything that Miss Stevens said is, again, like she said, the things that we talked about. The one thing I do want to emphasize is that come as you are. So like in terms of, let's say, putting your screen on, right? Your students are not gonna keep their screens on if you're not coming in with an open screen. That doesn't mean that sometimes you can have a bad day and be like, hey, look, today I'm gonna have my screen off because I just woke up. Like, that's okay. That also gives your students opportunity to be like, on days that they're also having a bad day, hey, I'm gonna keep my screen off. Like, you have to set the example for them. And then the last thing is, like, again, like, come as you are. So if one day you're coming in pajamas, like, you don't have to be dressed in a suit and tie. It's okay to, like, be chill and, like, lax, because then students know, like, okay, I can come this way too. It's just about being as professional as possible, but while still having a comfortable relationship where you both can be, like, honest with each other about, communicating, like, oh, hey, like, I'm not having a good day. The one thing I am going to say, and this is going to be repeated later, is that if you are consistently noticing that their screens are turned off, that they're not really participating, or that they seem like almost like down or something like that, you should be communicating with that with me, senior peer mentor, Randall, or filling out an incident report if you think it's really serious. Just because that gives us, like, a take on, like, okay, how is the student doing, and we can check up on them. Even if you think it's not that serious, sometimes it's just better, especially since we're online, to just say, hey, I'm not sure. I just wanted to let you know, just in case the student is not doing well. That's the only thing I wanted to say about, like, the nonverbal messages and stuff like that.
Okay. So good rapport. I love talking about empathy, because that was kind of a pivotal moment for me in my learning, when I realized the difference between empathy and sympathy. So empathy is having understanding for what a person may be going through. Sympathy is like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, but you really don't necessarily understand what a person is going through. Empathy is saying, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I've been through something similar. I understand. That is important in this tutoring relationship. You have to put yourself in a little bit of a vulnerable position, because you need to put yourself in their shoes again, and they need to understand that you have been where they are now. And however you do that, whether it's tone of voice, whether it's the words that you're saying, it's really important in establishing that good rapport. But with that said, think about the strategies in this virtual environment that you use, whether it's your facial expressions, whether it's bringing some props with you to the tutoring sessions. You're all going to be getting a whiteboard that you can use, whether it's using something maybe I haven't thought of before. Maybe there's an app out there that gives you access to a tool that's really helpful for you. That's fine. But it has to be something where you are establishing that relationship, so that they trust you, that you understand what they're going through, and that you have a mutually kind of beneficial relationship going on. So making sure that you are listening, active listening, always sometimes repeating things back to a student, saying, just to make sure I understand, repeating in your own words what they've said to you, being patient. Patience that's actually something I find that sometimes I struggle with in the Zoom environment, is just being patient and making sure that I'm continuing to be an active listener. And then being open, again, being a little bit vulnerable in the relationship, because that's going to be a much deeper relationship.
So the first tutoring session, the main thing, as I mentioned before, you want to establish, like, a good rapport with the student. So that means reminding them your name, your major, your experiences with classes if they ask, and stuff like that. But make sure you're also keeping on track of your schedule, and making sure that you're getting what, kind of giving them a first day, basically, overview of who you are, and what class is going to look like, what are the things that you're going to be going over, because you're the tutor, right? So you know pretty much everything. You have access to the Canvas, and you can give students a little bit more insight so that they can be a little bit more comfortable. One thing I'm going to say is that for the first tutoring session, you should have your screen on. You should have it on at all times, so that you're setting that example. But what this does is that it helps students, also like emulate your behavior, basically. So make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're reintroducing yourself, because especially through Zoom, like usually for the summer program, you have like a little name tag for the first week, and everybody gets to know you, and that's how we all know each other. Through Zoom, it's going to be a little bit different, only because it's less of an obligation to kind of remember your name. So just make sure, again, you're doing that and going over kind of like the ins and outs of what tutoring will look like and what classes will look like. So tutoring hours organization. So for tutoring, and I know a lot of people have had questions about this, for the morning tutoring sessions, they will be appointment only, and they're individuals. So you won't have like small groups. If for some reason you have two friends, which has happened to me, like two friends want to study together, and you see that they constantly make progress together, for me, that's fine. If you want to have a tutoring session like that, sometimes people are just more comfortable learning together. Just make sure that you can provide the resources for them to like be able to give them both attention. If you can't do that, then just do individuals. And that will be after each of the class. So afternoon and evening will be those appointment only. And then at night, you'll see on the schedule, there's the online mandatory sessions and their live sessions. Each tutor will be present at those sessions. And we can discuss how that will look like a little bit later during the debrief. But yeah, that's basically it for tutoring, and just making sure, again, that you're taking attendance. Is there anything you wanted to add, Ms. Stevens?
Nope, that all sounds good. I think, again, document. I always fall into the trap of, oh, I'll remember that, and I don't write it down, and then life happens, and I lose it. So document everything so that we can keep track and provide the best service that we can. But that's all I wanted to add to that. So, mentoring. Tutoring and mentoring together. This is what we do. I've talked with other tutoring programs at other colleges, and they don't have the mentoring side of it. And that always kind of boggles my mind, because it just seems to be such a reciprocal relationship to me. But at all times, even in the tutoring role, you are still a role model. What you do, what you present, is what they will think is okay. So be a positive influence. Be someone who encourages them. Be someone who builds them up. Be honest, too. So they're going to ask you questions. And I know many of you have been in these positions where they're going to ask you questions, where you have to walk a fine line, where you're being a peer, you're not being an advisor, but you're also not being a friend. It is a very fine line between mentorship and friendship, between tutoring as a mentor and being a friend. So encourage the students to do their own work. Encourage them to overcome that fear of reaching out to the professor for help. And again, they're going to look up to you. They're going to admire you in many cases. And so figure out what your line is between your role as a professional, as someone who is representing AOP this summer, and that personal relationship, which you can continue building on after the summer program. Sarah, did you want to add some to that?
Basically, tutoring as a mentor, like Ms. Stevens said, is really about establishing, I guess, at least for me, is it was always about establishing a good relationship with that person. As soon as you establish a good relationship, you understand who they are as a person, but specifically first what their needs are as someone coming to you for tutoring. That really gets the ball rolling. So as soon as you can like establish that relationship on the tutee side, it's easier to integrate the mentoring, just because then it's not as hard to like, you know, fall in that, okay, who am I right now? What hat am I like wearing right now? Am I a mentor or a tutor? And the reality is you're going to be both at the same time, but in that very first meeting, you're a tutor. And the more you work at that relationship, the more you can become a mentor, because there's, you know, as all of you know, because most of you have been mentors before, like as soon as you have a good relationship with that person, it's easier for you to go to them and tell them like, hey, this is, you know, you're not really doing great here. And it's like easier to be more honest with them just because you have that relationship. And some people are going to be able to do that better than others in terms of who the student is.
Yep. Okay. So the tutor code of conduct, confidentiality is absolutely a must. We are putting our trust in you. The students are putting their trust in you to make sure that the information that is shared with you in these sessions isn't shared with anybody outside. Obviously, if there are things that are shared with you that the AOP staff needs to know or the mentors need to know, obviously you do need to share that, but there will be instances where students will share with you and it doesn't necessarily have to go to anybody else. So make sure that you're keeping the information from these sessions confidential as much as possible. Maintaining your professionalism, being prepared. Sierra has some good notes later on about in your sessions having tabs open for different things that you might have to refer to. It sets a professional tone that makes things a little bit smoother. Making sure that you are on time, not forgetting appointments. I know that's easy to do with doing this program virtually. It's almost like we have two lives right now. Like I have my virtual life, my professional life, but then right behind me, my personal life is going on. And it's hard sometimes to keep that separation, but as much as possible, you need to do that so that you are always keeping track of your responsibilities as a mentor this summer. Focus on why you're there, which is for the student concerns and the student needs, and provide an open, safe learning environment for your students. Okay, self-efficacy. This is great. When you start with someone and you work with them to build a stronger sense of self-efficacy, and you see that kind of light bulb go off and you see that confidence grow, this is really fun when that happens. So people who have a strong sense of self-efficacy, they view challenges as something that they can solve. They have deeper interests. They get excited about putting themselves out there for new challenges and new opportunities. They are more reliable. They have a stronger commitment to those things that they are interested in. But then also when they face challenges, when something doesn't go right, they're a little bit quicker to bounce back. Again, because they see those challenges as something that they can work through, that they can conquer. And a lot of our students that we work with, you know, it's something that I struggle with sometimes too. They don't have that sense of self-efficacy, and that is something that we have to help them grow. You might see them avoiding some of the challenging aspects of their coursework. They might believe that they are not capable of doing these tasks that they find difficult. They're going to focus only on the negative aspects of what's going on in the classroom or what's going on in their lives. And this is part of your job as the tutor, And the mentor is to help them build themselves back up in a realistic way that will carry them forward into the semester.
So I'm just gonna add something real quick here. For me, and if anyone here has ever been tutored by me, my main goal as a tutor is not even to help you with your academics. It's to build self-efficacy, because as soon as someone is able to do that themselves, they come to you more often for help. And so your job, at least in my perspective, in order to be like a really good tutor, what you want to do is build self-efficacy in people. And that's just by, like, you know, as you see, like some of the things that are pointed out here with people with a weak sense of self-efficacy, what you want to do is push them to do those things. So if they're avoiding the challenging tasks, tell them no, like you can do it. Like we could just take it step by step. Like, make sure that you're building that trust between you and that person, so that then they are coming to you more often. It also helps them go to other people in AOP, like reach out to other people in AOP more often, because they see that, okay, this is someone who represents, you know, this department. And so that means that I can also go to, let's say, Miss Stevens if I need help, or I can also go to Gabe if Mo can't help me right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? So being able to build that in students is one of the most important things as a tutor.
Absolutely. So the next few slides are going to focus on tools that you can use for achieving our goals in these sessions. So this is a guide for how to set a goal. So sometimes it helps students if they know what the goal is. So they might think, I've just got to get through this class to get to the fall semester. But maybe you need to help them set a goal for themselves to earn a B in the pre-calc course. That's going to be something that helps to motivate them, to keep them committed to the work that they're doing. And it gives them a strong outcome that they might not have enjoyed before. Goal setting and reaching that goal is a skill set that they might not have learned before now. So we're going to move to and refer back to these as you need to, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on these right now. Learning styles and multiple intelligences. This is actually something that is evolving as we start to understand more about how people learn and how people process. But be aware of how the students that you are working with may be processing the information that is coming to them. If they are struggling with a topic and they're only getting verbal information, maybe you need to use a different tool. Maybe you need to use some visual cues with that student, and that will help to reinforce their learning. Maybe you need to figure out a different tool to help that student process what it is that they need to take in. Going into just some different aspects of learning styles. You know, they may be an active learner. So they may learn really well in group work because they like going back and forth with different people, kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. I tend to be a pretty sequential learner. I like to learn what is step one, what is step two, what is step three, what are the steps that I need to take to get to the outcome that I need. So I like to follow a kind of logical path. Reflective learners, they tend to like working alone, so they might do a little bit better with those one-on-one sessions. So they like to kind of think about it on their own first and process everything on their own first before then bringing it back to the classroom. And global learners, they might make big jumps in their learning. So they might work on something for a while, and then boom, like they understand. And then they've already moved on. So just think about what is best for the students that you're working with. So again, the purpose of giving you this information is so that you are aware, that you can pay attention to the cues, to the nonverbal cues that you're getting in these sessions, and think about what might be going on behind the scenes. You're there to help answer questions, but there's a whole lot of work beyond just answering questions. So you can think about some of these other strategies on this slide, whether it's helping that student bring themselves to a college level of reading. So utilizing some different reading strategies to help them comprehend that text a little bit quicker. The vocabulary, as you all know, from the time you start as a college freshman to when you graduate as a senior, just the vocabulary that you have to take in is huge. Note-taking skills, test-taking strategies, and then again, at the very heart of it, because you can meet any challenge. I truly think that every student is capable of learning what they need to know if they have the right attitude and the right self-efficacy, self-advocacy strategies.
So here are some more things about tutoring strategies. This is one that I use a lot, which is the student as a tutor. So it's basically just flipping it. If you find that like you're struggling with explaining something yourself, or like if you feel like maybe the student is not really understanding what the root of the issue is for a math problem or something like that. A good idea to have is just flipping the places. So making the student the tutor. I do this a lot. I make students make problems on the board. I have one student make the problem and the other student solve it. So have them explain it, summarize it, go through it. Even sometimes there's some students who need to write the whole thing out, explaining it to themselves. And that is also a good way. Just really get to know the students that you're working with. One tip I'm gonna give everyone is to have backup questions for students to practice on. So practice problems. You can also have students create them. So I remember one time me and Randall for stats, we made each student make a practice problem and then give us the answer. We would check them, and then there would be a full test for everyone, and we would assign like subjects in stats basically. And then they all took a practice test because they all worked together to make the test. And so one that takes the weight off you, like you're not doing the work, but also it helps students learn and process. So that's an important thing. So the creating the quiz, you can have them do it, you can do it. You can do mini quizzes until the final. So there's a lot of different strategies you can take for this.
Yep. And that's important to check their learning. Don't let them say, oh, I've got it, I understand. Make sure that you're using these strategies so that you can check the learning. Remember, why the student came to you. Is it out of frustration? Is it that they feel alone? Is it that they're actually struggling with the content? Help them sometimes to kind of get the session started. This is the number one, in my counseling sessions with students, the number one hesitation when I suggest tutoring is, I wouldn't know what to say. I don't know what to ask. Asking some open-ended questions and continuing to ask open-ended questions will help them to generate the questions that they need to actually ask you. Remember that they might have experienced past failures. They might not have had a success that they understand or that they feel up until the summer program. You're going to have to dig deep and really kind of, I think, push some of these students this summer to share with you, because you don't have that face-to-face interaction. So open-ended questions, continuing to push them, not accepting no responses. Those are all things you're gonna have to get in their personal space virtually a little bit this summer and push them.
Okay, so working with students of different backgrounds. So as everybody knows, obviously we're online, so students can be, I mean, working from DR, PR, whoever, like wherever, and that's going to be something that plays a role in the way you tutor, um, and just working with students from different backgrounds in general. So you want to provide students with an atmosphere of trust and acceptance. Like, you want to make people feel welcome, because if you don't, they're not going to want to come to you. And the point is to have an open relationship so that you can provide the resources for them. You can encourage students to talk about their family, their culture, their country. Like, if you find that students want to, you don't push them to. It's just, if you find that students want to but they're holding back, there might be other things at play. So encourage them, and that can be just by you talking about yourself, and setting the tone that it's in, like, that it's an open environment. But basically just be sensitive to viewpoints. Some people don't, are coming from different places, and so you want to be sensitive to their viewpoints and being able to understand where they're coming from, and maybe not knowing the same things. As you know, like, every country has different customs, different traditions, so being open to talking about that, and being open to answering questions. And if you're not, that's okay, you just express that. People are going to ask about Geneseo as a PWI, and we encourage you to be transparent and talk about that. It's important that we set the tone for what Geneseo would look like for these students in an honest way, because it's like, you don't want to lie to them. Like, that would be messed up. But you can talk about, like, what it's like to be a student of color if they're a student of color. You can talk about what it's like to be an ally for students of color, or so many different things. You can talk about things that are happening right now in Geneseo. Like, what movement and what hasn't moved. Like, what are things that you feel like are not changing, and like, it's okay to have these conversations is basically what we're saying. And one of the most important things is just to ease their anxiety. So if they're having like trouble kind of like understanding what it's like, especially since this is all virtual, they're not allowed, they're not on campus like students usually would be. So you want to make them feel like, okay, this is kind of like what Geneseo is, and this is what AOP is specifically. And even if like Geneseo is maybe not working out, you want to provide AOP as a resource, because there's going to be students that come to you that first week and they're like, hey, like, I'm really homesick, I don't know if I could be this far, I don't know about this, there's a whole bunch of cows and it smells like doo-doo. And that's the truth. But you can talk about, like, look, these are some resources, but if you're struggling, reach out to your counselor, reach out to other students, and then just keep an open mind. Never assume, and ask questions, and just you're going to learn from the students around you just as much as they're going to learn from you. And just remember not to have like that power thing get to your head. It's not like, although you are here serving as a mentor and as a tutor and as a leader, just remember that you're both people, and that you're in no different position than they are. And you should be having like a mutual relationship, learning from each other and respecting each other. And I feel like that's really important.
100%. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these because I want to get to some of our discussion. So individual tutoring versus group tutoring. There are some differences. There are some different strategies that you can use. With group tutoring, make sure that the tool of utilizing the student as the tutor, that is something that you can play with a lot and use it very effectively in those group tutoring situations. We'll go to the next slide. With group tutoring, the important thing is you don't let any students hide. Again, as Sierra mentioned, if they've had their camera off for multiple sessions, they're not responding to questions, they're not participating in discussion, that is something that you need to be aware of in those group tutoring sessions. And if you need to schedule a time for one-on-one with that student to pull them out to kind of figure out what's going on behind the scenes. You know, some students are going to be rock stars in those group tutoring sessions, and some are going to be really intimidated by that. So finding ways to bring those two levels together, encouraging the participation of all students in the sessions. Those are all going to be important.
So this is my favorite slide of this whole presentation. You're gonna have different types of students. One of the main things to note with each student is intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. So basically, intrinsic motivation is motivation that comes from within. So you're motivated because you want to get good grades, because you want to do better, because whatever the case may be. Extrinsic motivation means maybe they want to do better because, you know, they want to win that award at the end of the year. Or let's say we're giving money, $100 out to the person who gets the best score in stats. Not going to happen, but like that would be something that motivates you. None of these are good or bad. Like there's no, you know, like it's not like a two-sided thing. There's no like binary. But the one thing that I would say is that you do want to push for students to have some type of intrinsic motivation, because something like grades or recognition is, you know, it's not promised always. So you want to build that during the AOP summer program, you know, the want to have good grades, the want to whatever from within. Because during the year, you're not going to have a prize other than your grade. You know, there's not going to be a prize of like, you know, there's this award. I mean, maybe, but in all reality, like, you know, we don't really get awards. So you wanna build that within each student, the want to do better for themselves rather than for something else. And again, it's okay that both of these are playing a role, but just make sure you're building the intrinsic motivation. Yeah.
Yes. Understanding how to connect different types of learning. So any learning that may have happened before that would be considered prior learning, how do you as the tutor connect what the student already knows and has already learned to what they're learning now? Making that connection for a student, relating that connection to the student helps them feel the value of what they need to learn. The quality of the processing, making sure that your brain is also actively engaged in the learning process, using a variety of strategies to do that. And then the quantity, how often, how long, using that kind of time on task information, consistency, so that you're not wasting time, because time is definitely precious. So now what we want to do is hear from all of you. So maybe we could exit the screen sharing just so I can get some of those visual cues from everybody. But I want to hear from those of you who have tutored and have mentored before. What are strategies that have worked for you? What are methods that have worked for you? And I think especially as we're in a new environment this summer, if you've been working with students online, what are some things that have worked for you? So you can all unmute. Feel free to jump in.
Wait, can you say that even if you were never a tutor? Like as a—
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I'm really bad at math. And in the summer program, like I was so scared because like I just felt so stupid to ask questions because I literally didn't know basic math. And one of the things that worked for me that I really appreciated is the fact that Sierra was kind of like, no, you're going to tell me how to do this, like the process. So she made me think a lot. And even if like it took so long for me to get an answer, she would just still wait there. And she didn't make it feel like you're dumb. Like she didn't make me feel dumb. She was just like, I'm understanding you. I'm trying to see where you're coming from. And I think what worked for me is also like the steps. And the way the professor organized it, it helped me understand their steps. So the way I was able to get through a problem is remembering, like, first I do this, then I do that. And so then, yeah, it just helped me for me personally, like just one-on-one with Sierra, because then we can go through the steps and she would notice where I would get confused, and that's why I would mess up.
Yep.
So that for me worked, like letting the student tutor, and then yeah.
And I think you bring up a really good point, Rocio. You know, even if you haven't worked as a professional in a situation before, reflecting back on good experiences that you may have had in the opposite role as a student is really important in making sure that you're being an effective tutor. So very good. What other strategies may have worked really well, either as a tutor or as someone learning from a tutor?
I'll jump in.
Hi, Ed.
Hello. So I was just gonna say that being comfortable with silence is very important. I think that, like Rocio just gave a really good example, like when Ciara was tutoring her. So if Rocio was asking for help and Ciara would say, like, I think you can do this, like, just think about it. Being able to give the student some time to like really process information or like reevaluate what they need to learn is important. But if you see that like the student is still like really stuck and doesn't really know where to go, it's important to know when to jump back in out of like that silence and help the student and like guide them towards answering whatever question they need to answer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. Yeah, it's those nonverbal cues. Knowing how to read those is a good skill.
I want to add on to that.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi. So once I had a professor who told me that when someone asks you a question and you honestly just like straight up say, I don't know, and you don't really give yourself that time to process it and think about it, you just automatically assume you don't know. And I think like the silence that you get honestly helps when you're trying to process the question you're being asked, you know, and then you're just not telling them straight up like what the answer is or giving them any hints. Like first you want to see what they think, how they interpret it, how they think the if it's a math question or even if it's like INTD, like just thinking about how they interpret it first and then, you know, going on from there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
For me as a tutor, this is actually something I learned in Chem with Dr. Yoko, was just, I'm a visual person, so like I very much use any whiteboard I can. And I kind of just put it all out there. And then the part that wraps it all up is having the student say back to you step by step what you did or what they did. And that way you know what they know what they're talking about. So it's kind of that reassurance. And then like you said, you said in the presentation, like encouraging them, like you can do it, you know, it's okay. You practice. So along with that self-efficacy, just having them logically in their head thinking about it, and then just kind of working through it step by step, I found was helpful with my students.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. You know, this is why I'm saying if you have tools that you know of that that you have found that work really well for you in this online environment, use those. Nico brings up a really good point. If you are more of a visual learner and we're just talking back and forth, how can we meet that gap? Whether it's utilizing the whiteboard that you're going to be given as a tutor, or utilizing a virtual whiteboard that you can share between the two of you, maybe outside of Zoom. That's okay. As long as you're still documenting the sessions, no problem there, as long as you are giving the student the tools that they need to be successful.
Hello. Can everyone hear me?
Hi, Gabe.
Hi. Okay, cool. I would also like to add, because I remember both being a student and a tutor, and I feel like when it came to tutoring chemistry, I know I'm not teaching chemistry, but when it came to tutoring chemistry, it was very particular because being able to read and identify what you need to know is very important, and remembering it through your problem solving is also really important. Because it's like for things like conversions and units, you'd have to remember what unit you start with and what you have to end with, because that's what you need. And sometimes, you fall off in the middle of doing it because you're not paying attention to what you need. So I feel like, and even in this online environment, an important skill is to like pay attention to the wording of these problems, especially when it comes to math and how word problems can be very trippy. You have to make sure that you're paying attention to which parts of it it's asking you, which parts are fluff that don't matter, and which parts that you need to really be targeting while you're working through your issues.
Yes, absolutely. And Gabe, you made me think of a good point to kind of go along with what you were saying. Don't hesitate to reach out to the professors. If there's something that the student is asking you and you don't know the answer yet, the professors are there as resources for you too, as the tutor. We can help you with the AOP, can help you with the strategies, but the professors can help you with the content. So don't hesitate to reach out to them if you've got questions. Couple more thoughts?
I think I could go.
Hi, Mo.
So, one thing for me is, like, as a tutor, you got to be humble. Like, you got to understand that you can make mistakes, and also, like, you can't put yourself on a high horse, because, like, when I was when I was a student, like my summer program, I had a tutor who every time I went for help, this person would just talk about everything they did, and I would just leave knowing how much better they are than me every time after every session, and that didn't really help me. So you gotta put yourself in the student's shoes, and like you gotta, like, if they make a mistake, you don't be like, that's easy. Don't say certain stuff like that. Like it sounds like you don't have a big effect, but you can't say like, oh, that's an easy one, or like, you know what I mean? You gotta be like, oh, I understand where you can mess up on that. You gotta be humble when you're tutoring people.
Absolutely. Okay, just to keep us on track, I think these are all good points, and make sure that you're continuing to learn from each other. Tutoring is very much a collaborative effort. I'm always learning new things from different strategies that my tutors and that students have found effective. And I know, strategies for effectively tutoring are always changing. So use each other as resources. You are not in these tutoring sessions alone. You are a team. Make sure that you are reaching out to each other when you need to, and keeping those lines of communication open. Just logistically, Sierra, are you going to talk about the incident report form in the debrief? Okay, all right. So accurate reporting, making sure that you're reporting what you need to, keeping notes for yourself on these sessions. Document. Very important for you to keep organized, and then also for you to be able to report what we need to know about the students that you're working with. Okay, I think, do we have questions about anything that we reviewed? I miss you all, just so you know. I miss being able to run into you in the conference room. I miss interacting with all of you. So I hope you are all good and safe and happy. And I like seeing your faces. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, for the debrief, I expect faces. Just so y'all know, I'm not gonna talk to names. Sorry.
I do have a question. There's
Yes.
another link that's in my Google Calendar for later today. Do I need to disregard that, or are we doing another meeting later today?
Jordan, you're gonna meet with me instead, so just use my link.
Okay.
Yeah, Rocio, Juan, and Jordan will meet with me instead of going to that tutor brief.
So I'm confused with, like, you know how you have to I guess be kind or get along with your mentees, and but also like don't allow them to, like, I guess, get too comfortable with you. Like, where is that line, and how do you know when you are, not meeting the aspects where you should be as a mentor and you're being too friendly? Like, where, I don't know how to.
Yep. I completely understand what you're saying, and I'm going to open it up actually to the room to let some of the experienced tutors and mentors talk about maybe how they've handled it.
I'm not a tutor and I'm not a mentor, but I'm just going to throw this out. Rocio, you already exude a very professional demeanor. I don't know if you realize that. So if you go in with your natural, it's happening already. I think that you're already setting healthy boundaries and acting, you're speaking in a very, you present very professionally. So have confidence in your natural and look for boundaries. I'm sure it will become apparent to you, but it's a good topic.
Thank you.
Has anybody had an experience where a tutor did something and it maybe made you a little uncomfortable, and you're like, oh, okay, I gotta step back here for a second? Or a 2T student? No? Okay.
I mean, not that scenario exactly, but like when I tutored, like the first like 1 or 2 times, like just introducing myself, like we said, explaining why you're there, and kind of. But I'm always a person that likes to crack jokes anyway and like break the ice like that. So like, not saying that like you have to be their friend, but like you don't have to be a robot. Like you don't have to be like, oh, we're only talking about math and that's it. Like have a little, like, and it goes with conduct and all the stuff that I've done, is that you don't want to start off robotic right away. Like you want to start, okay, like get to know them a little bit, break that ice, let them feel comfortable. You're not asking them, so where do you live? What's your story? Like that kind of stuff. But hey, how's it going? Like, why'd you choose AOP? Why'd you choose Geneseo? Just little stuff like that to help you feel on a personal level. And then week 2, week 3, you can start getting a little, oh, so like, I see you're home or whatever. Like, how's working from home going, or how's learning from home going? And then you could start slowly developing those kind of questions without being too invasive. So I'd say, Rocio, like start, like I feel like you're a great example of just like, hey, I'm Rocio, talk a little bit about yourself, let them feel comfortable about you, those basic icebreaker questions, and then you can kind of develop that relationship as you see fit going on.
Thank you, Nico.
Okay, any questions that you have, definitely feel free to let me know. I am here as a resource, and definitely I like chatting with all of you, so I miss you. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Be safe, everyone.
You too, Gabe. So, Mike, can you stop the recording?